Okay. All right, everybody. It is Wednesday, May 6th, and today I'm going to be making toaster pastries with you guys. I'm going to be showing you how to make a basic pie dough first, and then I'm going to show you 2 different filling and finishing options for these, right? In the recipe that I shared with you guys this week, it's very easy to modify and change and things, right? So you can make them any flavor that you like, all right? What's going to start off with is like I said, the pie dough, right? And then we're going to bake these off, and they're going to go into a 350-degree oven. So I've already got the oven preheated, okay, and get that nice and hot. So I'm going to start off with some flour for this, right? So just a basic, all-purpose flour, right? 2 cups. You want to make sure that your measurements are nice and level for everything. Right? So a nice little shake. 1, 2. Now, this recipe here will make 8 to 10 of these. I'm going to be using this size cutter here today, 3-inch circle. So you can cut these by hand in a square. You can cut them in other shapes, and I'll give you some more ideas after when we get to that. But if you make them smaller, you get more. If you make them bigger size, you're going to get less. So you can easily double this pie dough flaky pastry crust recipe, okay? The next part of this is going to be our teaspoon of salt. So kosher salt, regular table salt is fine. So just make sure it's a nice level spoonful. Okay, I'm going to mix that right in here with my flour. So I've got my salt. And then I'm going to do a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, right? And baking powder is the one that comes in the can, not the box, okay? This has a double action. So it is going to help rise at first while the dough rests a little bit, and then it's going to rise again in the oven as it's baking, okay? So that's why we're using baking powder, not baking soda, okay? So nice level 1/4 teaspoon. It's got that nice little edge there to help you scrape that nice and level. And just give that a little stir, okay? So I'm just mixing in my salt, my baking soda. Then our next ingredient is going to be shortening, okay? So this is just a vegetable shortening. You can use butter, you can use margarine, you can use lard, okay? Doesn't matter if it's name brand, store brand, whatever it happens to be. So you're going to need 3/4 cup. So most likely you don't have a 3/4 cup measurement in your set, right, which is common. So you're going to use a 1/2 cup and a 1/4 cup, okay? So if you're using butter or margarine, every stick is a 1/2 cup. Okay. So
Miss, are we actually mixing it with our hands?
I'm gonna, yep.
Okay.
You don't want to over mix pie doughs. Okay, so I got my 1/2 cup, I got my 1/4 cup. That's gonna give me my 3/4. Okay. Get all this stuff here out of the way. Remember, clean as you go. Okay. So I've got this right here in the center. So what I'm going to do is just by hand is I'm going to cover that shortening real quick with flour, right? And I'm going to tip down just a little bit so you guys can see as I'm doing this, right? So I'm just using my hand like a claw machine, right? And what I'm going to do is I want to break up all of these little bits of fat. Into small pea-sized pieces. If you're using butter or margarine that's cold straight from the fridge, put it in the microwave for a couple of seconds on defrost, maybe 10, 15 seconds. Soften it up a little bit, but make sure you don't melt it, okay? So this doesn't have to be perfect, right? It's gonna be like kind of like a coarse cornmeal, right? Little pea-sized pieces of fat. And the reason I'm doing this by hand is that I don't want to overwork the dough. Okay, there are a lot of recipes out there for doing pie doughs and mixers and food processors and things. And what I find happens a lot of the times is that dough gets really tough and chewy, right? And I don't know about you, but I want my toaster pastry to be light and flaky, okay? Plus it's fun, right? So get some kids at the house to help you. All right, so I'm gonna add in just plain cold water, right? And I'm gonna start off with 5 tablespoons full. 2, 3, and 5. And you'll see that this recipe calls for like 5 to 6, okay? So I always start with 5. and go from there. And you may not even need the whole last one either, right? If it's really humid weather, you might find that you need less water. If it's really dry, hot day, you might need a little bit more than 6. That's okay, right? And I can tell here that I'm still got a lot of dry stuff, so I'm gonna add in another tablespoon. You just wanna start to mix it until you can start to get it into a ball of dough. Like I said, the key with pie dough is to not over mix things, okay? I wanna be able to still see little streaks of fat, okay? And the reason for that is that when that fat melts, those little pockets of fat are gonna create steam, okay? And that steam is what is going to give me a light, flaky texture, okay? So you think of all those little steam pockets as they go through, right? So it may not look super mixed at this point, right? But this is where I'm gonna stop and let it rest. So even if you just let it rest for a few minutes, you can put it in the fridge for a little bit if you find that it's a little bit too soft to roll, and you can chill it for about a half an hour. You can make pie dough in advance. It'll stay good in your fridge for a week. And you can freeze it too, okay? So I'm gonna stop at this point and swap out with another dough I made a little while ago. And I'm gonna clean my hands, all right? So, like I said, remember, clean as you go. With this, I'm not worried about getting everything off because I'm going to be rolling the other dough in just a second. I just want to get the big chunks of dough in my hands. So if you take a little bit of flour from your bag, right, rub it on your fingers, it'll get all that dough off, okay? And definitely do that over the trash can, right? Not your floor. So I have a dough that I made a little while ago. So I'm going to be using this because that way I just wanted to let it rest a little bit. And the reason for that is I want that flour to absorb all that moisture from the water, right? And I want it to kind of level itself out, okay? So I don't have any dry pockets, okay? And you'll be able to see there's little white bits, right? That's the fat, okay? And you'll see it when I roll too, there's little streaks to it and things as it rolls out. So like I said, that's going to give you those nice flaky layers, okay? All right. So now I'm going to take a little bit of flour on my nice clean counter, which I will clean again after, and again and again. It's a never-ending process lately, right? So a little bit of flour, just like when we were working with the pizza dough a couple weeks ago, right? I want to have it light, push the extra to the side over here, okay? I don't need to have too much. And you can work with this dough in sections. So I'm just going to cut it in half at a time. Okay. I'm just going to flatten it down a little bit. A little bit of flour on each side, right? Like I said, you sprinkle a little bit of flour on. Don't go too heavy, right? I don't want it caked in flour. Right? I don't want to dry out my dough, all right? I'm going to put a little bit of flour on my rolling pin, okay? And then as it starts to stick at any point, add a little bit more flour, right? Same thing. You know, kind of pick up the piece and move it around. As you're rolling, you don't need to flip it though, okay? Start to roll this out. Now, to figure out how thick to roll it, right? I want the size to be about the thickness of a nickel, okay? So you go in your pocket, your change jar, right? So I want it thin, but not too thin. I still want to be able to move it and shape it and things like that, right? So like I said, see if it starts to stick a little bit, add a little more flour, but just do it a little bit at a time. Like I said, I'm going to be cutting these out with a cutter today. You just want to make sure that your dough is picking up, right?
Wait, miss, what are you making?
Toaster pastries.
Noise.
All right, so with these here, like I said, I'm going to be using a cutter. You can use a glass cup, right? You can use a jar lid that matches the size that you want, right? So maybe, you know, a jar of a spaghetti sauce or something like that, okay? Or you can just cut out the squares yourself, okay? So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of flour on my cutter. When you're pressing down with any kind of cookie cutter, you always want to press down and just give it a little twist, okay? You're gonna need 2 pieces for each, okay? So each toaster pastry that you do, you're gonna need 2. And where I didn't overwork this dough, I'm gonna be able to re-roll this, okay? So you can take away the excess. I'm gonna set my little circles aside on a cookie sheet I got back here. Right. Now, if you need help picking them up, you know, a little spatula and things, okay? So I'm gonna take my circle, keep it in the group, right? And I've got a baking sheet back here with just a little bit of parchment paper, all right? So I'm gonna move those back. So I'm gonna be showing you guys 2 fillings today. But for whatever flavor you're making, you need 2 of the same shape, right? So if it's circles, you need 2 circles for every toaster pastry that you do, okay? Take it, I'm gonna roll out some more dough, cut a few more circles here to show you, and then I can show you the fillings, okay? Set a little bit of flour on the pin. Right. And this is a nice versatile pie dough. You can use this for making an apple pie. I use this as my crust for a quiche and for my toaster pastries, right? It's good to have one go-to pie dough recipe, okay? That's easy, fast to make, that you can do a lot with, okay? Try and get 4 of this one. Perfect. And 4, right? So that'll give me my 4 tops. And I'll roll a lot of this more later on today, right? And the other half of my dough. But for right now, I've got 4 bottoms over here, and I've got 4 tops, okay? So what I'm gonna do is get these ready to put my filling in, okay? Moving things around here. All right, so give yourself a little bit of space. Now, on the filling part of it, right, like I said, you can use all different types of things. So I'm gonna do a couple with brown sugar and some with some strawberry jam for you guys today, okay? So I have just a basic jarred strawberry jam, preserves, things like that. Jellies tend to be a little bit thinner, right? So look for something that's a little bit on a thicker consistency side, right? A little bit chunkier, okay? Now for these, I'm gonna brush some egg on it, but I'm gonna show you a little trick on how to get it on there without making a big mess, okay? So I'm gonna take and put a spoonful or so of jam. You don't wanna go too much, all right? I wanna leave about a 1/2 inch around the outside edge. Like that. And then on the other ones, I'm gonna do just a little bit of brown sugar, okay? And I had this covered up because brown sugar does get crusty on the surface, right? So I want to keep it nice and moist. All right, so I'm gonna put my brown sugar in. Same thing, leave that little bit of an edge. And these are gonna get different icings on the top after too. But I'm gonna show you a little trick so you'll be able to remember which ones are which. All right, so we'll put that to the side. So now I'm gonna crack an egg to use as my egg wash. Remember to crack it on the counter for less shells. Okay. And just whisk that up real quick with a fork. A little small whisk, okay, whatever you got handy. Right. And now I've got my pastry brush, right? And you can do this with your fingers too if you don't have a pastry brush, that's fine. Now, instead of trying to come in and put egg wash all the way around the outside edge of my circles with the filling, what I'm gonna do is take and put my egg wash on the top. Okay? So now if I come in, I go around the outside edge of this, I don't have to worry about getting my brush in the filling, okay? So then I can take, so you can see, I'm gonna put this right over the top of that one, and just give it a little press. I'm gonna crimp this in a minute, sure all of them got their little tops on. These are a fun snack, good to have for breakfast, but good snack for any time. Great if you got little kids in the house that are driving you crazy, right? I keep them busy. Okay, so I said I'm putting that egg wash on there, all around the top, outside edge. Push that down. Okay, so that's my little toaster pastries there, right? Now I want to make sure that I don't screw it up what's what, right? So I know that these ones here close to me are brown sugar and these ones are strawberry. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little mark, okay? So 2 little fork marks in the brown sugar ones and the single one in the strawberry, right? Now this way afterwards you're going to see, because that way it'll help me be able to figure out which ones get which flavor icing, okay? Then you're going to take that same fork. You can use a little bit of flour on the fork if it sticks at all, okay? And I'm just going to come in and crimp around the outside edge, all right? So I'm just going to squeeze those 2 layers together, all right? And that's what's going to make sure that that connects with that egg in the middle, but also keep my filling inside. Okay. These are going to bake about 15 to 20 minutes in the oven, about, like I said, at 350. Okay. They don't take long at all. Okay. Put these in the oven, and then I'm going to swap them out. Some I already did earlier. Okay. So there's my little toaster pastries. So now these are going to go in the oven, like I said, 350, about 15 to 20 minutes. Yes, I'm looking at my clock to make sure I'm keeping track of the time on it. Now, I've got some that I did earlier. Ta-da! Look at those, right? So, brown sugar, strawberry, right? So remember I did brown sugar, I did 2 fork marks, strawberry, I did 1. You can't go and bite each one to figure out what filling's inside before you put your icing on. I know that might be a lot of fun, but if you're giving these to other people, you can't do that, right? So I'm gonna be making an icing for these, which is just a simple confectioner's sugar icing, right? So I've got my powdered sugar here. I've got a couple of bowls I'm gonna use to mix up my icing. So I'm gonna do a cup of icing, a cup of sugar in each bowl, right? So, in this bowl, 1 cup in the other. All right, stick that out of the way. Now I have to make these thin, right? I gotta turn them into icing. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 2 different flavors. So I'm gonna do one as a plain with just a little bit of water, and I'm gonna do the other one maple glaze to go with my brown sugar, right? But the plain one I'm also gonna make pink. Okay, so I'll start with that one first. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of my water here. Whisk. Now, 2 to 3 tablespoons is what it calls for, right? And it can vary, okay? I'll show you the consistency that you're trying to get, because some liquids are thicker than others, like the maple syrup's a much thicker consistency, obviously, than water. Okay, so I'm just mixing this around so I get all my sugar incorporated. All right, you can see that this needs a little bit more. Now, depending on the flavor filling you have, you can use liquids, like milk, you can use orange juice. Whatever flavor you'd like, right? And if you've got little food colorings in your house, you can make it any color that you want too. Right? So this is what I'm looking for, right? You'll be able to see a little bit better once I put the color in. So I've got a little bit of pink food color in here to go with my strawberry toaster pastries, right? These are super concentrated food colorings for cake decorating, so a little bit goes a long way. This is 1 drop. So you'll see that icing now, right? So I want it to drizzle back into itself but I want it to kind of disappear within a couple of seconds, okay? So that way, when I pour this over the top, it'll spread, but I don't want it too watery where it's gonna spread right off of the toaster pastry, okay? So for this one here, powdered sugar, maple syrup. And this is the real maple syrup. I'm not a fan of the fake stuff. But if all you have is imitation, you can definitely use that. Okay. But you can buy local maple syrup, you know, right at the grocery store. Farmers markets and things over the summertime too, right? And you'll see that this one's a lot thicker, right? Because the syrup itself is a lot thicker. So if you find just too dry, keep adding it until you can get it to that nice consistency. And the nice thing is that the maple syrup itself is going to give it a nice color. Okay, so I don't have to add coloring to this one. It's going to get that nice tan color, beigey. All right. This is basically just sugar and sugar, right? Now, if it's a little thick and pasty for me right now, so I'm just going to add just a little bit of water just to help get that consistency. Okay. This one sit a minute, and then I'll check the consistency again, right? But you can see the color of this one, right? Blend it in, a little bit more syrup. Okay. So now, I'm going to take and put the glaze on top. Okay. So here we've got our little toaster pastries, right? So I'll separate these out. So those are going to be my strawberry. These are going to be my maple. Okay. All right. Now you can just drizzle a little bit of icing on, right in the very center. You can do this with a spoon too. Just use that whisk to guide it. Now you notice I have this on a cookie sheet with a cooling rack, right? So in case I get drips, it'll drip right off the side down at the bottom. Now for fun with these, sprinkles. All right. I'll do some nice rainbow sprinkles on top. All right. You can see that consistency, right? Like I said, a little bit drizzled off on this one, but not much, right? So I want to make sure that it's thin enough to pour, kind of like a thinner marshmallowy cream, right? But I don't want it so thin that it runs right off and doesn't stick. Okay. Put some sprinkles on these. All right, now the maple ones for our brown sugar. Still just a touch thick. Same thing, I want to make sure that it is nice pourable consistency. Okay, you can see there, right? Stringy. Loopy. These are my brown sugar maple glaze. And then the strawberry with pink icing and sprinkles. So just use that little whisk or spoon to ladle them out. All right, and there you go. There's your toaster pastries. All right. So
nice job, Miss. Did incredible.
Thank you. So hopefully you guys will try these at home.
Good job.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me stop the recording. Bye.